Okay, calling to order the Joint Committee on Ways and Means and Education. This afternoon, we'll hear from the Department of Education, who will be presenting their biennium budget requests. So good afternoon. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good afternoon, Chair De La Cruz, Chair Kidani, and members of the committee. Superintendent Keith Hayashi. Thank you for the opportunity to share an overview of the Department of Education's biennium budget request. With me today are Board of Education Chairperson Bruce Voss, Board of Education Member Bill Arakaki, Deputy Superintendents Heidi Armstrong, Tammy Oyadomori-chan, Kurt Otoguro, Chief Financial Officer Brian Hallett, along with our team of Assistant Superintendents who are available to answer any specific questions committee members may have.
Oh, who's watching the ship?
I'm starting on slide 3. At our core, we support students and learning. The Department of Education is charged with ensuring that every student, regardless of their abilities or socioeconomic status, is prepared to be successful for life after high school, on whatever path they choose, whether it's college or post-secondary training, directly into the workforce, or military service. Our budget request aligns with and supports our ability to carry out this important mission by seeking predictable and reliable funding for our schools and system. Stabilizing the base budget for public education will support our strategic efforts to meet student needs throughout their pre-K through 12 journey. Slide 4. This is data that you're already familiar with. It speaks to the enormity of the responsibility we have to educate all students and the human resources needed to accomplish this well. On the next slide, slide 5, we know that COVID disrupted student learning and impacted the social and emotional well-being of many of our students. Thanks to our dedicated employees, along with the continued support of the legislature and federal pandemic funding, the department was successfully able to reopen all of our schools for in-person learning for the 2021 to 22 school year, and again this year. The priorities highlighted on this slide helped us transition during the pandemic and allowed us to stay focused on supporting our students. On slide 6, in recognition of that disruption, the federal government made huge investments in public education nationwide during the pandemic by providing emergency relief funding, which we are all very appreciative for. The largest part, the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, or ESSER, was intended to stabilize our organization to the benefit of students, staff, and the state, and to respond to the detrimental effects on student learning. Outlined on this slide are the 4 strategies the department identified for this recovery effort: healthy habits, healthy schools; action-oriented data decision-making; responsive capacity building; and effective academic practices. Aligned to these strategies, some of our targeted supports under ESSER include: number 1, summer school. We expanded and provided free summer school for all students. Number 2, after-school programs. We expanded access to the after-school programs and provided subsidies to offset the cost of A+ to families. And number 3, school-based health services. We expanded the Hawai'i Keiki program that provides school-based health services. Each of our 15 complex areas now has an advanced practice registered nurse, or APRN. Each of our 41 complexes has a registered nurse. And there is a school health aide at every school. On slide 7, by leveraging ESSER funds to counter the effect of the pandemic, along with the hard work of our teachers and staff, I'm happy to share that our strategies are producing results for students. One example is our academic performance for the 2021 to 22 school year, which was our first full year of in-person learning during COVID. As you can see on this slide, our overall proficiency level for English language arts was the highest amongst 11 states reporting scores on our statewide assessment. We used a smarter balance assessment which is used by 14 states and territories to assess academic proficiency as an indicator of college and career readiness. Our overall proficiency level for mathematics, meanwhile, was near the highest performing states on this test. While we still have more to do to return to pre-pandemic achievement levels in Hawaii, and for every student to achieve proficiency, these results show that Hawaii fared well compared to many other states last year. While last year's student attendance was challenged by COVID-driven absences, the state assessment results reflect student performance broadly in the tested grades 3 to 8 and grade 11. Student participation rates on these state assessments were 95% for English language arts, 96% for math, and 94% for science. On slide 8, Hawaii students' performance on the National Assessment of Education Progress, represented here by grade 4 reading results, confirmed our own assessment using the Smarter Balanced assessment that I just shared on the prior slide. The NAEP shows how Hawaii performs in comparison to all other states in math and reading. The results show that our students fared better than most states in last year's return to in-person learning. While the nation and most states showed drops across the board, Hawaii's 4th and 8th graders held steady on 3 of 4 NAEP assessments. This slide shows a strong, steady trend of improvement for Hawaii's 4th graders, reading compared with the national average. So while we are not where we want our students to be, we are making progress. And last year's return to in-person learning yielded measurable results. On slide 9, I applaud the legislature for its continued funding for public education. And you can see that our per pupil funding exceeds the national average. However, when comparing our expenditures with states that performed higher than us on the recent 4th grade NAEP, we find that 5 of 7 higher performing states spent more per pupil than Hawaii in 2018 to 19. On slide 10, although we are very encouraged by the progress being made, and we are working diligently to sustain and accelerate this momentum, we know that a full recovery and achievement above pre-pandemic levels will take time and investment. Experts are predicting that students' academic recovery will take at least 3 years for elementary students and longer for secondary students. But we are all trying our best to accelerate this recovery. To help accelerate the efforts on slide 11, to help accelerate our efforts and move our entire system forward, we are focusing our attention on what we are calling high leverage initiatives. These are targeted areas that we know we need to dedicate resources to in order to best support our students. Areas like vulnerable populations. The pandemic exacerbated achievement gaps for our most vulnerable students. We need to provide differentiated and targeted support in the classroom, school, and community to improve education outcomes for students, student groups, including our Pacific Islander and Native Hawaiian students, English learners, and students with disabilities. Another area, workforce. We need to ensure we are graduating students who are workforce ready and can earn a living wage and thrive here in Hawaii. Our students deserve opportunities to explore viable career pathways and obtain the skills and experiences necessary to better position themselves as top candidates for jobs of current and emerging industries in Hawaii. Another area, secondary math. We need to strengthen our math concepts that our students need to be successful in middle and high school, as well as in their post-secondary endeavors. The associated budget requests for these initiatives are presented in a later slide. All of this work is grounded in our 4 statewide strategies referenced earlier, which all of our schools are already implementing. Slide 12, this chart helps to provide context for the magnitude of the board-approved general fund biennium budget request in relation to the current fiscal year appropriation. The first bar on the left represents the current year general fund appropriation. The second and third bars represent the department's base budget in blue and the department's budget request in orange for the first and second year of the biennium. The governor's budget request, $55.8 million in each fiscal year, is a portion of the orange bars. If the department's budget requests were fully funded for the biennium, the department's budget would still be less than the current year's appropriation. On slide 14, although much less than the legislatively appropriated general funds, federal funds continue to play an important role providing supplemental support for our students. Congress only recently passed its omnibus budget bill for federal fiscal year 22-23. We expect the funding to be fairly consistent with prior years, but we are awaiting notification about the amount that Hawaii will receive, and we will share that information with you when it's available. On slide 15, ESSER and other coronavirus relief funds have been tremendously helpful by providing fiscal stability when state revenues faltered early on in the pandemic. These funds also allowed the department to respond to immediate pandemic impacts. For example, we fed all children with our Grab and Go food program. We connected with our students via laptops to support distance learning. We purchased sanitation supplies and equipment. The board and the department also prioritized programs to support in-person learning, accelerate learning, support social and emotional well-being, and address health and safety needs. We continue to invest in free summer school for all public school students, auto school time, such as A+, Hawaii Keiki nursing services, and providing $153 million in direct funding to the complex areas to support school needs specific to their communities. On slide 16, the department is transparent and accountable for the federal ESSER funds. We post monthly expenditure reports on our public website. Each monthly report covers over 2 years of allocations, expenditures, and encumbrances broken down by activity. A new national report from Future Ed, a think tank in Georgetown University, showed that Hawaii ranks second amongst all states in spending its ESSER funds as of September 30th, 2022. On slide 18, as instructed, we have included these 3 links to the annually produced non-general fund reports. Taking a pause from the slide presentation, I'd like to now provide an overview of the governor's budget request for the department. For reference, this can be found on table 2, 3, 4, and 6 of the materials we provided to the committee. This budget request maintains the operation of the public school system, promotes health and safety, and advances the educational services provided by the department to ensure the academic, social, emotional, behavior, and physical needs of students are met. Some key projects to make note of are that it incorporates $39 million in fiscal year 24 and $62 million in fiscal year 25 for collective bargaining. It then seeks to add $55.8 million in general funds and FTE positions for various requests that include $7 million in each fiscal year for the Hawaii Keiki program to facilitate greater access to health care for all students, $10 million in each fiscal year for workers' compensation, $10 million as a lump sum to cover repurposing of classrooms and buildings and aging equipment for the school food services program, and to address long-term soil contamination fixes. $13 million to pay for electricity costs, which have been rising as a result of higher oil prices and increased energy use in new schools and new buildings. 43 permanent positions and $3.2 million for a permanent K-12 virtual schooling option for English and Hawaii language immersion students. 92 permanent position counts, but no additional funds in each fiscal year for applied behavior analysts, and $4 million in each fiscal year for nighttime security coverage to enhance the safety and security of our state and complex area offices. The request also includes various non-general fund ceiling increases for the A+ after-school program, Medicaid reimbursements, commercial enterprises, and our Grant Search and Development Revolving Fund. Chair De La Cruz, Chair Kidani, or committee members, do you have any questions before I return to the presentation slides, which will cover the department's Board of Education approved budget request?
Thank you, Superintendent. I don't have a question. I just have a comment in talking about the security services that we're going to need for our schools. The state public librarian was just here requesting the same thing for libraries. We are separating our public safety group into a new law enforcement group. And I'm thinking we might want to look at that possibility of having that our law enforcement agency look at doing the security for the school and the public library. I don't know that it can be done, but I think before you guys go and contract out, we should look at that possibility.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Okay,
Proceed.
thank you. Okay, on slide 20, budget requests. This slide details our general fund budget request for fiscal year 24. This table summarizes by EDN. Our general fund budget proposal for fiscal year 24 moves from the current fiscal year, removes non-recurring funds in the next column, and adds collective bargaining costs. Slide 20.
It doesn't have slide numbers.
Then we show the department's board-approved request totals, followed by the proposed total general fund appropriation level. I would note that this slide represents the department's BOE-approved budget, which includes the $55.8 million in new requests that are part of the governor's budget. Of the BOE budget requests, 78% are in EDN 100, 150, and 400, which are resources directly to schools. On slide 21, the fiscal year 25 proposed budget is a little higher. It includes funding to continue some supports that will be ESSER funded through the end of this fiscal year, but are important supports to accelerate learning from pandemic impacts. Slide 22. There is often a question about whether schools are receiving an appropriate share of the budget. This graph shows that Hawaii's per pupil expenditures for instruction in red are higher than the national average. This reflects the commitment of the legislature to focus its investment in instruction at a rate that outpaces the national average. The graph also shows that our non-school administrative expenditures in yellow are lower than the national average. Our administrative expenditures have consistently been among the lowest in the nation. Slide 23. As mentioned earlier, helping our students recover from pandemic impacts will extend beyond the biennium. And the future of our children and our state depends on improved outcomes from our public education system. This slide summarizes the department's requested budget by category. The high leverage initiatives, which we touched on earlier in the presentation, consist of strategic initiatives for school and system improvements. These initiatives aim to address long-standing challenges and needs of our students and community. We are advocating for the governor to include these requests in his amended budget. The high leverage requests, as discussed earlier in the presentation, are for vulnerable populations, workforce readiness, secondary math, leadership development, K-12 alignment, middle level education, teacher recruitment, and other resources to support priority initiatives. Toward the bottom of the table, the budget requests are organized by the governor's budget priorities, including continuation of programs funded by specific appropriations and health and safety, court order, or federal mandate requirements. As requested by the Finance Director's recent memorandum, yesterday we formally transmitted the department's request to the Department of Budget and Finance. The Finance Director's memorandum 23-01 identified education as one of the governor's priorities. So we are optimistic that the Green administration will consider these requests for its financial plan.
I just want to clarify then. So
Yes.
the page,
Yeah.
the pages with the operating request and the capital improvement request, that's in the current governor's budget. It's the EGA budget.
Yes, is that correct?
Those are the amounts that have been asked by the department and approved by the board.
Board.
But what was formerly before the legislature right now is that $55.8 million number that's being referred to. These tables reflect what is currently before the Green administration for consideration as of yesterday.
Okay, where are the requests for the EGA budget that's in the current bill?
Those are embedded in here.
Oh, you
Those are
combined
those
it.
last, the second to the last and third to the last. So those are the two categories that make that up, but it's only partial funding for those two categories. The continuation of program funding for specific appropriations, the health safety court mandate, and the federal mandates. So if you wanted to see what you're asking for specifically, I think you would look at table 4, which shows what went to the governor's decision. Those are the prior administration's decision and what is currently before you. Sorry for that distraction. But table 4 has that breakdown of the $55.8 million.
Can I ask a- So, you put a budget before the Green administration and they approved, right? They put together a budget.
No, my
I mean, the
understanding is that,
EGA administration.
yeah, they had the EGA administration
Right.
budget, BNF governor's decision. Then yesterday, they had to send down additional requests that the Green administration will consider to send down as a GM.
Okay.
But he has it mixed, so we can't tell what's the
Right.
EGA and what's
Right. But
the potential governor's message.
yeah, well, my question is, what changed in the time that you put requests to the EGA administration that not after that was done, what changed for you to have the new requests for the Green administration?
So we put together a 2-part budget. One was following the instructions that came up from the prior administration and focus on health safety and continued funding. That was passed by the board, and I believe our October meeting went to the outgoing governor for his consideration, and he approved a portion of those $55.8 million of that.
How much did he
Then it-
approve?
55.8.
Oh, that was
of
what
the
portion
total.
of that was the budget?
What was your initial request?
Oh, I can't remember.
120?
125 and 141, so only a fraction,
So half.
a little less than half. Then on December 15th, the board considered additional items that were more strategic in nature and didn't necessarily follow the instructions to the letter of the outgoing governor, which were only to ask for sort of health, safety, court mandates, that sort of thing. That's one of the strategic requests. At this point, as of yesterday, everything that wasn't funded in the current, the outgoing governor's budget proposal has been submitted to Budget and Finance. So right now, they're considering the total package as approved by the board.
I know, but for us, it's easier to see what is in the current governor's budget bill.
And that is what you'll see detailed in table 4.
And so all
By
of the ones that
steps.
we have, your budget request summaries. So that's all current then. That's what you're submitting, because that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, but what I want is, because it's gonna be in the governor's budget bill, you justify what's in the bill. Because that's what's gonna be before us. Why? What you're asking for, why you asking for it, and how much is in the bill for each item. Then you can do a second step of the things that you submitted to the Green administration for the governor's message, what
So-
you're asking for, why and how much, but you combined it all, so you can't
Well,
tell.
We tried to follow the instructions that's provided, and that's why you'll see some.
But they have different instructions than us.
In the tables that are attached, you'll see like 4 and 4A, and we tried to separate it out so you could get a sense of what was in the initial request and what's currently on the table.
I don't see 4A. Let me see.
I'm sorry, 6 and 6A rather.
We don't have table numbers, so you gotta give us page.
No, you
No,
do
no,
have
this
it.
Oh,
I think the attachments. in it.
The WAM budget, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so if you guys can go over what's actually gonna be in the governor's bill. First.
No more, he said 6 and 6.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Chair. So part of that $55.8 million in general funds includes $7 million in each fiscal year for the Hawaii Keiki program to facilitate greater access to healthcare for students.
Okay,
So-
this is what, our table 6. Table 6 is only the additions in the governor's budget. Okay,
$10 million in each fiscal year for workers' compensation.
Okay.
$10 million as a lump sum to cover repurposing of classrooms and buildings and aging equipment for the school food services program, and to address long-term soil contamination fixes. $13 million to pay for electricity costs, which have been rising as a result of higher oil prices and increased energy use in new schools and new buildings. 43 permanent positions and $3.2 million for a permanent K-12 virtual schooling option for English and Hawaiian language immersion students. 92 permanent position counts, but no additional funds in each fiscal year for applied behavioral analysts. And $4 million in each fiscal year for nighttime security coverage to enhance the safety and security of our state and complex area offices. But we understand.
But what you're reading off of which document?
I know, I can't follow, only the first page.
Easier for us to see that.
I'm on table 6, but on table 6, we only got 3.
Some of the pages doesn't have the table.
My apologies for
It's
that.
our
Yeah, on
browser.
table 6, page 16. Additional funding for workers' compensation.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, we're on table, which one now?
Is that page 2?
6.
Table
Page
6.
90, 16 of 90.
No, Table 6.
Table
Our
6.
Our page number is right here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Table 6.
Okay, go ahead.
3.
Additional funding for workers' compensation is needed to cover the anticipated shortfall to pay for statutorily mandated benefits.
Yeah. Okay,
Additional support is needed. Sorry about that. Is needed for students returning to in-person learning. $7 million in each of the in each year. Students returning to in-person learning with unmet health needs. Funds will be used to sustain advanced practice registered nurses and registered nurses with at least one complex. $3.1 million to add 43 permanent FTE and funds the state distance learning programs, including the state Kaiapuni Hawaiian language immersion distance learning program. Nine permanent FTE and funds for the monitoring and compliance branch to meet federal requirements. This branch is experiencing challenges sustaining and retaining vital, high-quality federal monitoring and compliance employees, and that is a $1.4 million in each year.
Chair, can I clarify one thing before we go? Do you want only the general fund items to be highlighted or all means of finance? Because like that last one was a revolving fund. We have several federal fund ceiling increases.
no, we can go through that,
You
but
wanna-
you just need to, I just want to go what's in the current bill.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So do you want us to highlight, you
But
know,
why don't you go
all
through one
items,
at a time though?
okay, all means of
General fund
finance.
ask, and then you do, by different
Well,
categories.
this is sorted by EDN, so as we go
Okay, that's
through,
fine.
I'll try to call out then.
It'll be good too if you announce the numbers to EDN 100 or whatever.
Okay, so looking at table 6, page 17 of 90 on the tables, we're on the
It's not
second
same
row.
page as ours.
Okay, EDN 100 DB FA, priority number 4. This
Okay,
is SS ceiling increase, $1 million. This is just a ceiling increase for the migrant ed program. So we can expend federal funds coming in. Next row, EDN 100 DB, priority number 6, request ceiling increase for ESSA, 21st century learning school centers, community centers, $500,000. Ceiling increase federal funds. EDN 100 BX, increase to revolving fund ceiling for the commercialism fund that you guys funded last year. this is a special fund. This is to come back and do it as a revolving fund, which is what we actually need. 500,000 for revolving fund. Then the next three rows that you see are identified as collective bargaining, and you'll see a few more on the next page. Those just represent the folding in a previously approved collective bargaining into the budget. So probably just can skip a whole bunch of rows. Any questions on the collective bargaining stuff? If not, the next item is EDN 150 YK. Request to increase appropriation ceiling for growth in the Medicaid reimbursements. This is a ceiling increase again, a revolving fund, $6.4 million a year. EDN, next one, 150 SA, add funds to pay for skilled nursing services, $6 million. This is general fund, $6 million to accommodate the cost increase. And this is, note that this is about half of what is actually required. Our original request was $12 million. Next item is EDN 150 and B, establish other federal fund ceilings, $5 million. This is for a specific grant. I don't want to mispronounce this one. This is school-based mental health program, ceiling P funds, $5 million. EDN 150 BA, next line, add funds to address increase in students with disabilities, request for activities departments for compliance with section 504. This is a general fund request for nearly $900,000, $898,000 for compliance with section 504. Next item is EDN 150 BA. These are the 92 positions superintendent mentioned in general funds, FTE only. We already have the general funds in the budget. This was a fraction of the FTEs that were requested, originally 166. Again, you have several rows of collective bargaining adjustments for EDN 150. Takes us to the next page, EDN 200. GD, add 2 positions for the behavioral health specialist and 1 office assistant. This is for the Youth Suicide Prevention and Protocol Act funds. 2 positions, $1,600,000 general funds. Next row, EDN 200 MK. This is request funds for the continuation of training pertaining to Title IX. This is A funds, general funds, $350,000. And if there's anything that if we need to clarify where we're at, let us know. Okay, so we're in the third row on this page, last row, EDN 200 GC, $207,000. This is requesting funds for the kindergarten, the KEA, kindergarten entry assessment, annual assessment. Next page.
Oh, that's not a one-time cost.
It's a recurring.
With the legislative mandate that begins, and then we begin administration of the kindergarten entry assessment this fall with the recurring cost for that.
Did it start already? You started using that?
No, we are going to start this fall.
EDN 200 GD.
Okay, yeah, top of the next page, GD. 1 position, $111,000 general funds, implement summer learning statewide. Next row, EDN 200 GC, 1 position, 110,000 general funds for the student garden coordinator position to continue. Program is funded from a bill. Again, then we have several rows of collective bargaining adjustments for EDN 200 and 300. Second to the last page, EDN 400 OE. This is a $13 million request for utility costs, general funds.
13 million.
13 million. Did I say 100? Sorry, 13 million. EDN 400 OI. This is a lump sum adjustment made by the governor. There was actually $23.5 million requested for 3 areas. It was originally the requests were for $4 million for resources for new facilities. I believe it was $18 million for food service programs, and $2.5 million for soil mitigation in East Hawaii. We got $10 million in the governor's budget to address all 3 of those things. That's what this line item is. Next page, EDN 400 OC, general funds, $4 million for night security. So we had a brief discussion on earlier. Then several rows again of collective bargaining for EDN 400, bringing us to EDN 500 WA. This is purely a ceiling increase, a very large ceiling increase for our A+ program, $26 million. Then again, EDN 500 collective bargaining, several rows of adjustments. So in summary, this was the $55.8 million that the governor approved. Governor Ige, outgoing governor, and put into the budget to meet the statutory requirements to submit the budget by the deadline. It is not what the department is actually seeking support for. And we're currently working with the BNF, Budget and Finance, to have that considered by the governor. At the same time, parallel, we're hoping today to start talking to you about some of those other things as well, but so. So that was a summary of the $55.8 million, but of course, that's
Okay,
a fraction of what was shown on that bar
we got
chart.
that. We heard you. Okay, so what's in the, what are you asking the green administration to submit? Where is that in a separate document?
Oh boy, that's the next section 6A.
Okay,
The next page, if you keep going, it's all of those items.
but we're not sure if the governor agreed to any of these yet.
Correct. It was just submitted yesterday about 5 o'clock to meet the deadline of yesterday per the finance memorandum 2301. Which that only came out last week, Friday, that memorandum asking for the submission of those requests by yesterday.
Okay,
So that is, hot off the press, I guess. What 6A is what's being considered, plus everything on table 4 that we asked for and didn't get. Remember, we only got a fraction, less than
We
half of
heard
the
you.
request.
okay, so what they outlined
It's confusing.
is what is going to be in the governor's budget bill. So that's table 6. 6A is potentially what the governor will send down as a governor's message. So it's not in the budget bill.
That's why it's the second
This
budget
is-
submittal.
Yeah,
It's that, and then everything not funded on table 4. So we can certainly put this in a better format for you. We were trying to comply with the format as prescribed in the instructions, and make this a lot cleaner and a lot simpler for you. And I apologize that it's you got to piece it together to see the complete.
well, it's
picture.
different this year
Yeah.
because then we're between administration. So that's why this year is very unusual with the budget hearings.
So we can make a chart or a spreadsheet for you that'll show our total requests and then what's
you
been
just have to-
done so far.
No, this is sufficient.
Okay.
Table 6 is what the EG administration agreed to. And then we still have to see what the Green administration will agree to. But this is what 6A is just what you asked the Green administration to consider sending down.
Yeah, so 6A and everything not funded on table 4.
Okay, but you didn't re-ask in 6A?
We did.
Yeah, so there's gonna be duplication.
No, they didn't get it, so they didn't.
No, but if you didn't get it from EG, wouldn't you ask for the rest of it for
That's what they
Green?
did, yeah.
But then they added on top of that. Yeah,
Additional
so they
stuff.
have, they asked for everything they didn't get from EG and some.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and things that were approved by the board on December 15th. Yes, the more strategic initiatives.
yeah, so when you go to your PowerPoint, what page is that?
24.
And if you go to your PowerPoint, basically what you're asking for is. Where is it?
183 million? No, 210 million?
Yeah, for fiscal year 24. You're asking for additional 187 million.
183.8.
What? This
183.
is your table,
Page 24.
Oh,
24.
on page, no, but I'm looking at page 20. No, not page 20.
so
Page 24. Mm.
page 20 and 24 are different, 23 are two different numbers. One says 186, one says 183. Should be the same, right?
Oh, page 20 is this.
Yeah, so page 20.
Right, and then you have page
Budget
24.
request summary for fiscal year 24, it's 186, that's million.
And the things are-
Request. Oh, yeah, that's what I said, over here. Yeah. I'm just gonna- And then we can go pages down. It says.
Yeah, page 24 and page 21.
So if you look at this page, it says 183, but then when you look at this.
You're very astute. There is a $3 million difference. The
Yeah.
$3 million difference is, it's a little bit confusing. It has to do with an interpretation by budget and finance of non-recurring, which we feel is a recurring expense. That was the $3 million that the legislature identified last session to be used for the Pahu project. And sorry, that's what's causing the difference in those two numbers. And
Okay, you know what? Let's just recess, Professor. Recess. Just so we can get. There's. Okay, reconvening. Okay, so can you explain the differences between the numbers?
yeah, I think the slides 20 and 21 summarize what we are, the department, the board is asking.
You had
The
mentioned.
difference of $3 million.
Yeah, okay.
What you'll see in the later table is that we're trying to categorize, just put it in large buckets, simplify the conversation, those buckets. And in doing the categorization of buckets, what we did was we left off $3 million. $3 million is a technical dispute over what is BNF is interpreted as non-recurring, and our contention is it's recurring. And what it is last session, part of our base budget was authorized for use as a grant and aid so that it could go to Hawaii 3 Rs to do some work at a school. It was just authorization that was needed to allow that work to happen. It wasn't that we didn't need that money out of our basically maintenance program on a recurring basis. So that's why it was left off. That's what the difference is. It's a $3 million difference. And I hope that clarifies what caused the difference in these two tables. But in totals, the totals on slides 20 and 21, those are correct. And the buckets are correct. But what we didn't do is we didn't categorize that $3 million. It's kind of just money in dispute in a sense.
What about for 2025? The number doesn't match. either.
It should be off by a like amount.
It's wrong.
Yeah, that one's off by 3 million too. So it's
Okay.
where our contention is it's $3 million should have been left in our base
Okay,
budget.
so it's not good.
Whereas BNF in their interpretation, because it was a GIA, they're saying we just want one-time funded. and cut
Okay,
it.
so that slide 20 on page on your page 24. That is supposed to represent what's in the governor's budget, the EG budget, and some. Because I thought it was supposed to be 55.
So what's in the EGA budget is 55.8. We are asking for from the Green administration just yesterday for an additional 131 and an additional 157, which would bring us up to the numbers that you're seeing on slides 20 and 21.
Yeah.
Or what you see on the later slide, less $3 million, or actually we need 3 million more.
You cannot make it too confusing, because if not, you're getting nothing. Okay, so really what we should be talking about is table 6, because that's all that's in the governor's budget. And then you're hoping that some of the 6A is going to be in the GM. So how many pages is that 6A table?
Every year. I don't think I have it.
Looks like it's 8 pages and also it's the items that weren't funded on table 4.
Yeah, you're just
Yeah.
you're recapturing it.
is
Yeah,
taking.
but this is why we were trying to simplify and create buckets for you to have conversations on that,
We
knowing you're
wanna
not
see
gonna
that.
have time today to go through all of these
Quite a
items.
bit.
No, if you want it, you gotta explain it to us.
$127 items.
No explanation.
Go ahead.
So you want to go through
If
all the
that's what you
127
you gotta
items?
explain to us what you want, why you want it, how much it costs.
Okay, so I think superintendent has covered the buckets, the categories and the strategies that are attempted. Now, these are the details behind those. So if you want, we can go through those 7 pages. That's fine. Shall I start driving through the 7 pages and want to honor everyone's time too. Let's see. So. Table 6A, which for us is page 22 of 90. I hope you have the same numbering. So top of that, A funds, $5 million second year only. This is for weighted student formula. What this is seeking is continuation of funding that for use for the rural schools, 2 million to help rural schools and $3 million for the weighted student formula reserve that helps schools that are experiencing extraordinary circumstances, small schools, isolated schools as well, that can apply for those funds. Those monies through the pandemic were folded into the weighted student formula budget in total. And so we have been using ESSER funds to maintain that program for a temporary period. And if we're going to be continuing it later, we're asking for help to do that. Next row, EDN 100, 6 positions for alternative learning branch, 6 positions, $1.9 million. This is, yeah. Next item, vulnerable positions transfer out, $1.9 million from Olamana to alternative learning program. You'll see that coming back in later.
Yeah, maybe not so much transfer in, transfer out, because
Yeah.
that's real admin. I'm talking about new budget requests.
Okay. Okay, and then row 4 is EDN 100 BL. Add funds for continue to expand statewide participation at student-led conferences, general funds for $100,000 a year. Next one, EDN 100 BL, 12-month state office teacher position, 1 position, $60,000 to expand statewide student leadership opportunities. Next item is EDN 100 BQ, increased level of funding for current learning centers, $392,000 general funds. Next page, EDN 100. This is for 2 ROTC instructors for Moanalua and Waipahu High School, 2 positions, $95,000. And this is to cover the approximately half of the portion that the state covers for JROTC positions. That's why it's a lower amount. $100,000 add funds, interstate travel funds, for neighbor island students to participate in annual JROTC competitions, general funds, $45,000 a year. ED 100 BX, AP for all students in order to increase participation in the AP courses and exams, $202,000 general funds. ED 100 BX, vulnerable populations is the category, add funds to support English learner program. This is $3 million a year. This is in recognition of the Title VI civil rights, the requirements there. ED 100 BX, add funds for the workforce development program operating expense, $72,400. You authorized positions last year, but we have no operating budget for that program. No non-payroll dollars for that program, I should say. EDN 100 BX, AP test fees subsidy, general funds, $211,000, $815 to subsidize AP exams. ED 100, next page, ED 100 BX, secondary math. This is a secondary math initiative, 11 positions, $1.9 million. Next row, ED 100 BX, Hawaiian language access law. This is requesting 50 BShaw positions or bilingual, bicultural school home assistants, 50 positions, $2.2 million in the first year, increase into 100 positions, $4.3 million in the second year general funds. Next row, ED 100 BX.
So 50 new positions first year, 100 new the second.
Yeah, and then an additional 50 in the second year, growing to 100 total.
Yeah.
Okay, and the next one is also workforce readiness to better prepare students for their future in the workforce. General funds, $2.49 million in the first year, $2.69 million in the second year. Next row, middle level education. This is based on the priority for MLE or middle level education, $579,450. Next row is for math camps. General funds, $56,350 a year for math camps. Last row, other resources to support priority initiatives. This is addressing vacancy gaps through recruitment and retention incentive bonuses, $200,000 a year. General funds. Top of the next page, 100 ED 100 BX, training for classified staff. General funds, $1 million a year. ED 100 CB, supplemental funding for Smart Find Express. This is to help with subscription for licensing for Smart Find Express, which helps us to find substitute teachers, $60,000 a year. Next row, ED 100 CB, leadership development, educational officer, professional improvement. This is for sabbaticals for educational officer positions, general funds, $1 million a year. ED 100 CJ, 3 positions for the Office of Hawaiian Education. It's 3 positions, and additional only $28,792 are required. It's to supplement existing funds in our budget. Next one, 2 positions, Hawaiian Education Program, $220,000 a year. Again, for the Office of Hawaiian Education. Next row, 2 positions for ed specialists to support Hawaiian studies in secondary schools, 2 positions, $211,000. Next row, it's for the Office of Hawaiian Education and the Aina Aloha program to stabilize expansion of the Kapuna program. Second year funding, currently we funded with ESSER funds. Second year only, starting in the second year, $678,000 general funds. Next page, ED 100 CQ, accountability dashboard for school design and improvement, general fund $650,000 a year. ED 150, increasing funding for speech language pathologist services, $1.3 million a year, general funds. Last one on this page, special education services position request for the exceptional support branch, 1 position, $114,000, general funds. Next page, ED 100 YC, student identification and access system to support mental and social emotional health. This is second year funding, starting in the second year, $850,000, currently being funded with ESSER funds. Next page, mobile app for students to provide equitable social emotional supports. Again, $850,000 general funds. Second item on the page, EDN 150, add 20 ed psychologist positions to intensive mental health support and services. Starting in the second year, 20 positions, 1.6 million general funds. And EDN 200, this is a K-12 alignment initiative. This position to assist in developing and reviewing instructional practices and curriculum. 1 position, $124,000. Next item, also K-12 alignment secretary for that educational director, 1 position and nearly $55,000 a year. Second to the last on this page, secondary math for applied math ed specialist 2, 1 position, $110,000. Last one is workforce for future readiness 2 level position, full-time ed specialist 2 for the OSID, 1 position, $110,000. Top of the next page, EDN 200 for vulnerable populations, early childhood ed specialist 2, 1 position, $100,000. Then EDN 200 GC for K-12 alignment, a 12-1 state office resource teacher, 19 positions, $1.5 million. EDN 200 GC, adult education, ed specialist position, one position, $110,000. EDN 200, Kaipuni, vulnerable populations, general funds, $252,000. First year, $215,000, second year. EDN 200 GD, funding for school health administration programs, three positions, $255,000. Last position on this page, EDN 200, summer mental health supports, $1.3 million, first year only. Top of the next page, EDN 200 GD, add educational officer 2 for social emotional learning support facilitator, one position, $124,000. EDN, next one, EDN 200, add educational officers for the Hawaii multi-tiered system of supports, one position, $124,000. Next, EDN 200 for trauma-informed sensitive school professional development, starting in the second year, $400,000 general funds. Top of the next page, EDN 200, funds to provide adequate coverage for students for educational costs of students in Hawaii Hawaii residential facilities, $150,000 a year. EDN 200, middle school athletics, $5 million a year in the first year, $10 million in the second year to start building out middle school athletics programs. That's general funds. Next item is summer learning hubs, EDN 200 GD, general funds starting in the second year, $20.9 million to continue funding that's currently being done with using ESSER funds. EDN 200, evaluation and analysis, three positions, $335,000. EDN 200, other resources support priority initiatives, 12-month state office teacher for the Hawaii Virtual Learning Network, one position, $60,000. Last item on the page is to increase support for employee performance management operations, $3,300 a year, general funds. EDN 200, other resources support priority initiatives. This is 4 FTE positions to fill classrooms with qualified licensed teachers, 4 positions, $300,000. Next, EDN 200, leadership development for principal in residence and vice principal in residence training, $40,000 for that program. Next item, EDN 200, GJ, 1 FTE middle school principal in residence, one position, $127,000 a year. Next item is EDN 200 GJ, mid-level education, 2 positions, $121,000. Last item on the page, GJ, leadership development, 6 positions, $561,000 for the Leadership Institute. So I would say, like, all of these are line items, and we struggled with, do we roll these up and bunch them is lump sum items, or do we break them all out? And clearly we broke them out, not with the intention that we would be spending a lot of time going over each of these, but I just wanted to, because I'm reading this and it seems painfully long and detailed.
Except if you want money.
Yeah.
You gotta tell us. What
If we
you're
gotta tell
asking
you.
for.
Yeah, okay, so EDN 200 GN, add 6 SBA EBH district ed specialist support positions to support mental health, 6 positions, $660,000 general funds. EDN 200 workforce development support for complex areas, $1.6 million a year general funds. EDN 200, 1 position ed specialist for ELL program, 1 position, $106,000 general funds. EDN 200 GP secretary position to support the English language position, 1 position, $43,000. Top of the next page, EDN 200, response to needs to support homeless children and youth in Leeward, Oahu, 1 position, no dollars, just FTE only. EDN 300, 1 position for private secretary for the Board of Education, 1 position, $65,000. EDN 300, add funds for 1 institutional analyst for the Board of Education, 1 position, $110,000. And then last one, community stakeholder engagement for costs associated with community and stakeholder engagement for the Board of Education, $6,800 a year, general funds. Then board governance capacity building, to fund Board of Education governance capacity, $45,775 general funds. The policy innovation planning, next EDN 300 KD, policy innovation planning evaluation branch pipe, $39,000 a year. They don't have operating funds for that program. They have positions, no operating funds. EDN 300 KD, 4 positions. This is the 2 perm deputy superintendent positions and 2 perm private secretary positions, 4 positions, $544,000 a year general funds. Then EDN 300 KD, 2 communication specialists, 2 positions, $249,000 a year general funds. EDN 300 KD, add funds to upgrade program specialist 5 position to an audit specialist 2 position, 0 FTE, $24,000. EDN 300 KD, add funds for school site visits, stakeholder engagement, and safety and security for the Queen Liliuokalani building, $157,598 general funds. EDN 300 KD, adding funds for protocol, $3,000 a year for protocol funds. Second item, EDN 300 KD, adding an ombudsman position, 1 position, $114,000. EDN 300 KF, business operations, 8 positions, $451,000 to support payroll, vendor payment, lead management functions. Top of the next page, EDN 300 KO, 1 position, permanent office assistant to avoid rotating coverage for existing staff, 1 position, $37,872. EDN 300 KO, teacher recruitment, add 1 perm FTE teacher recruitment for hard to fill positions, 1 position, $110,000 general funds. EDN 300 KO, class and comp section support, 2 position, $105,612 general funds. EDN 300, add 1 half-time permanent FTE for classified recruitment unit support, 0.5 FTE, $22,608 general funds. EDN 300, funds for human resources applicant tracking system, general funds, $450,000 a year on a recurring basis. EDN 400 OB, state office moves and relocations. This is $15.4 million as a one-time expense, largely associated or related to a proposal to purchase St. Francis campus. EDN 400 OB, support for current needs for ongoing initiatives, 2 positions, $274,000. This is for facilities and a budget person and a gender equity Title IX position. EDN 400 facilities, replace vehicles for facility maintenance branch, $875,000 a year. EDN 400, add protocol funds, $3 million a year. This is, I believe this is that adjustment related to that. It's the adjustment related to GIA. Yeah, this is the restoration of the GIA money. And then next page, EDN 400, other resources to support prior initiatives, city and county bus transportation, $10 million for a pilot project for student transportation for high school students for city and county bus passes. Then EDN 150, add positions. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, and then that's W funds. So those are the requests that were board approved on December 15th. Those do not include the ones that were not funded on table 4. Do you want me to go through those table 4 ones too?
I have a question. The 10 million for student bus passes. That's for high schoolers only. And does that
Yes.
reduce our transportation costs for 10 million? And more?
I'm sorry.
Does it reduce our school bus transportation costs since now you don't need it for high school use?
Well, I said it just, the answer is it's 9 through 12 is what the bus passes would be offered to, but it would not reduce. This is in addition to, as we did the pilot during the pandemic and providing that the free bus pass. So this is just a continuation of that program. But there is actually going to be more increase in our bus operation due to the upcoming bidding for the RFP for the bus.
Yeah, but how does that work? You're going to continue having bus service plus the 10 million to the city and county.
It's transferring to. Let me just, like I said, so the
Name,
pilot.
name and title.
Randy
Yeah,
Tanaka,
who are you?
Office of the-
You gotta stick, get it. I can remind it.
But, so the pilot was, because we were short of about 100 drivers, not so much vehicles, we still needed to provide a service. So one of the considerations we gave was the higher grades, 9 through 12, were more apt to ride on the municipality bus. So we went out and grades 9 to 12, we offered bus passes for the city buses.
Yep.
The intention was to shift any bus drivers we could shift off those higher grade routes. We'd move it down to the areas where we really needed the replace the drivers that we were lost. So that was the pilot, and the pilot has picked up about 8,000 riders, primarily on the west side of Oahu. And the reason we're not getting the degree of success on the neighbor islands is just because of the route structure. They don't have enough frequency and the timing to match up with arriving and departing from school.
So did we settle the problem we had with Waikoloa going to either Kealakehi or Hanaka'a? We had big issues, yeah.
In a small part. So we worked with Helion, the bus company, and the county. But the ridership, we're not getting the ridership on that. And part of it is
Okay.
timing. Part of timing. But to answer your question, Senator, that's the pilot to see how much we could shift off the 9 to 12 ridership, and we would move
Yeah,
the
but you're
buses
saying
down.
it's not reducing any cost of the bus service to the schools that we now use.
It didn't reduce costs. It shifted the funds from, because we couldn't get those bus
That's what I
drivers.
was getting at.
Mhm.
You're not paying both.
Oh, no.
Okay.
We
so-
had savings on the
So
other
there's
side.
no
Yeah.
duplicate route.
No,
It's either a city route that we're gonna pay for or a bus.
a bus, correct, right.
Thank you.
So it's neutral, fundamentally neutral.
Senator? So on the neighbor island, I'm with Senator Lorraine. What are we doing about it?
So
Because I know, and I worked with Helion, like you were talking about. And we don't have the same bus services because we don't have the population, but it still doesn't change the need. So what are we doing about it?
So we have gone out and looked at smaller vehicles, primarily vans, 15-passenger vans, to supplement those routes. The challenge we have is we can't get that equipment right away. There's no supply for that. And understand that transportation, that form of transportation, school buses need to be painted yellow. So we can't go out and rent, because then we'd have to paint those rentals. So we're waiting for delivery for the smaller vans. And because it doesn't require a CDL license, we can get some teachers and some of the school staff has volunteered to drive those buses to pick up those kids. But we're not there yet.
So what's our timeline?
You know, we've ordered for another program, something like 25 buses, and they're telling us next December, excuse me, not buses, vans.
So still a year out?
So what we're doing is continuing to evaluate routes, shifting those routes where our highest demands are. Unfortunately, it's still a problem. Senator, it's just not enough drivers. We've done pay differentials, we've done working with those guys. It's just not there.
And I understand CDL drivers are problematic nationwide. We
Yes.
don't have enough of them. And I got that. But the problem is I'm concerned about our kids, and especially it's the rural districts that have the biggest problem
Yep.
with, and they have the least amount of transportation. And so we all recognize it's a problem, but a year
Yeah,
from
it's-
now, it's a lifetime for a kid.
Yeah.
So
We know we can't, if we can't get them to school, we can't educate them.
right.
So we've done a number of different things. We've done compensation to parents, mileage. Oh, we tried carpooling. We continue to evolve this, but our hope is that we can get we tried the bus passes for Helion and they just don't use it.
Well, we don't have the routes, but there's no fee for using Helion. That's been,
Correct.
I think, for the next 2 years until 25, we don't have a fee to ride
Correct.
Helion. We just don't have the timing of the bus service at that time. And we've looked at it, and I worked with John Ando to get that thing as best can, but we got to be careful with federal funding.
Correct.
So it's not easy and you cannot just change stuff.
We looked at adjusting bell schedules, school bell schedules to get them to starting later. But it's problematic on the back end because they go back home later and some of them are like 2, 3 kids in the household. The younger kids are getting home and the older kids are not getting home in
Yeah,
time.
so we have latchkey kids
Yeah.
now, and so this is a problem too. So Senator, I don't want to take any more time, but I want to have this further conversation. Can you contact my office and let's
Sure.
set up a top story?
Got it.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Senator.
He inherited my district. So, thanks, Senator.
Okay, can you
Happy to take
prioritize all the additions? Give us a list of,
Right.
that's. How do you know if the governor is gonna submit it as part of his GM or not?
We don't, we only submitted it last night and we haven't had any feedback yet. You're
Yeah.
hopeful that it is a priority area, that it can be.
Well, I'm just
accommodated.
wondering if you should be submitting bills to the subject matter chair.
Why did you only submit it last night?
Because that was his deadline. That was BNF's deadline.
Governor.
Well, we shared our board information with budget and finance as it passed, so it's we just submitted in the format as they prescribed yesterday.
Just
Yeah.
have to stay in his office and do some work.
Yeah, because like the House traditionally, I'm not sure now, but the House, they don't even include GMs in the budget.
That is a fear. Certainly.
So you're lucky it comes to us in March.
But that's where the bill might be the better approach. Then you can have thorough discussion on each item.
Maybe.
Appreciate it. Work on that.
Okay, you have more you want in your presentation?
Just one more slide.
We know you prepared so hard, so we don't wanna like
Thank
not
you.
let you
Thank you. Thanks.
present it.
Thank you, Chair. Slide 24. Please, the CIP request represents the amount in the governor's budget for the department. The categories listed in this CIP budget request remains consistent with categories used over the last 2 years. The largest request in fiscal year 24 is a capacity category for new schools and to expand current schools, including more classrooms and land acquisition. 2 other large categories are first, deferred maintenance, which includes building and site repair and maintenance, electrical and infrastructure improvements, and hazardous material remediation.
23 page. Oh,
So that's page 23 on our.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And second, federal grants, which provide matching funds to renovate military impacted schools. The other categories include support. This is for school improvements, including athletic facilities and electrical upgrades. Compliance. This includes compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act and Title IX. Health and safety. Instructional, which supports facilities for 21st century learning opportunities, such as career and technical education and STEM for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And the Office of Information Technology Services, which supports the department's technology infrastructure, including network equipment and bells and paging systems. Within these categories, projects will be selected from the prioritized list provided to the Board of Education. Slide 25. The department is excited about the future for education and moving beyond the COVID-19 crisis. We are proud of the efforts of our teachers, administrators, and staff across our tri-level system who prevented our state from seeing some of the drastic drops in achievement that occurred across the nation. And we are looking to build on that foundation with our high leverage initiatives to continue to propel our state forward. Thank you for this opportunity to share, and thank you for your continued support, which is so critical to the success of our public educational system and for our students, employees, and partners statewide. My team and I are standing by for any questions regarding our budget requests. Mahalo.
Question.
Yes,
So
Senator.
table 15, can you give us a breakdown? You have to give it now, but
We'll provide that to you, Chair.
Certainly.
Okay, maintenance. I was at Hawai'i yesterday on another issue looking at, in new infrastructure for parking. It was brought to my attention by the principal. We got sewer problems and that's a county issue. Former councilman right here. But what's happening is it's affecting the school. So where Hawai'i is on Waitanui Avenue, they've been having backups. They've bathrooms backup, office, cafeteria, band room, and the auditorium. Big time. They had to call Rooter because Dax couldn't fix about 4 times since August, but the backing continues. So they've closed up, they closed the restrooms. So every area, including interesting, the new gym we built earlier too, they use the bathrooms and everything backs up. So we got health issues. So can somebody quickly take care? Because I know it's a county issue as well, but it's a school's problem right now. It's very unhealthy. So I think they've been going all around wherever the students need to use restrooms. I don't know where they're gonna end up with.
We'll get somebody right on that,
It's-
Senator.
yeah.
Yes,
Okay, thanks.
thank you.
Superintendent, for the, page 16, the federal funds. Can you just give a few examples of what the schools are able to use this, federal funds for?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. The federal funds are related to ESSER. I actually had the opportunity, really fortunate to get to different schools. Most recently, I was out with Complex Area Superintendent Bob Davis out in Mililani yesterday, Mililani and Leilehua complexes. And ESSER funds were used for several things related to students. For example, they were used to provide opportunities to expand outdoor areas. So cafeteria tables that were older in the schools. ESSER funds were used to replace those tables. Those tables inside of the cafeteria then were put outside to expand learning spaces outside of the cafeteria area. Other things included creating learning spaces and opportunities for students. ESSER funds also went for tutoring, for after-school tutoring for students, supports out of school time, supports for academic and socio-emotional efforts. Deputy Armstrong, do you have any other that you want?
Schools have also provided additional part-time personnel to help with smaller groups or the out of school time activities. So personnel have also been major purchases for the schools. They've also taken advantage of trauma-informed care. They have hired additional personnel to support the tiered system of support. So when they look at their data, they can provide interventions for their children. And so interventions have also, curriculum intervention programs have also been purchased with those funds.
We've also at Leilehua High School Center, the ESSER funds are also used to expand area and services for students in their library, and also by purchasing equipment that included infusing technology into the fine arts program, areas for students to meet and to bring students back to address, as Deputy Armstrong shared, those social and emotional areas that our students so desperately need.
Chair. I keep, with the proposed CIP, and I'm sorry because my computer just didn't shut down, this how bad technology is, but the proposed CIP is cash funded since BNF had a good chunk of the CIP proposed. Is it A funded?
Thank you very much for the question, Senator DeQuay. Kirk or Brian?
Like, which table are you talking about?
Yeah, on the CIP, but I cannot open it because my computer's still frozen again.
I think that's all geo bond, yeah, your request.
So it's all geo bonds.
Mostly, well, we got
The In the upcoming biennium request, all geo bond.
So what is what is the plan to expend the full 240 million in cash CIP by the deadline? Because the
one?
CIP one is the cash one, CIP cash funded.
No, last
Yeah,
session we gave cash.
so you guys spent them down already.
Oh, you're talking about 256 million. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So yes, we have a plan. There are two increments, right? There's lump sum and then there are 70 line items specific to schools.
Yeah.
So we are actively going over the lump sum. We have already expended about 78 million of that. And we have plans to under AS Tanaka, mostly all of it. The challenge is going to be the 70 line items because they're specific to a particular school and a specific purpose of that. So that will be more of a challenge for us to do, but we're working through that.
I don't know.
So you're gonna have the itemized on what schools the thing will be expended to?
Yes, we do.
Okay, we're gonna be able to see that.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely, Senator.
Thank you.
No, okay, table 15. Table 15. Your first line says A. And then fourth and fifth and ninth, they all say A.
Oh, I see. That is general fund. Yes. We didn't ask anything about it. So I guess the lump sum for that experience at book construction. Yeah, the assumptions.
Well, it says deferred maintenance.
Yeah, we can get back to you on that, but yeah.
So is this in the EJ budget as this way or this? Okay,
Superintendent, table 6, page 4 of 8. You're asking for 166 positions for applied behavior and analyst positions. But actually, if it's 92 in each year, that's 184.
you are you looking that up? I just want to
Thank you, Chair.
clarify so you guys gotta spend that, I think, because of MOE.
Yes.
So that's why it's in cash. So you have to make sure you spend it. If not, it's gonna screw us up.
What time, you know,
Yes.
So the two, excuse me, Randy Tanaka, Office of Facilities and Operations. So the two buckets, right? One was the cash bucket, 125 million. And the other was the 70 line items, 131 million. Clearly, the cash bucket, the lump sum is much more flexible. And we've placed the position of those monies where we'd spend it. And we're going through the process of getting whatever it needs to be, design or material or whatever. Like the superintendent said, we've committed about 70 of the 125. We are fairly confident that we will achieve the 125 because we have until June of 2024 to get that encumbered or committed.
But those are smaller projects, yeah?
Well, yes, most of them are smaller projects.
Okay.
So what we have deployed is what we call a job program.
Yeah.
And now what is called a pre-qualified small contractor. The challenge also we have is who can do the work. So now we've opened another category, so we have more contractors to do the work. So we're tracking pretty good on that side. The 70 line items will really be dedicated to design. We're looking at whether we can prepay for material, or we can encumber it by POs or the traditional encumbrance process.
I think you just gotta make sure it gets spent though.
Yep, exactly.
You know, when you added positions, you guys added lots of positions, yeah. Do you have a position you can cut in its place? So that we're position neutral? If you can take a look at that. You don't have to answer now. We might be
Well-
out here all night.
We'll get back to you, Senator. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Senator, I've got a question. Actually, a couple of things. First of all,
Wait, I'm still waiting for an answer. on
oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, through the budget requests to former Governor Ige, we received 74. Or I'm sorry, we received 92 positions, and now we're asking for an additional 74.
Okay, so your tables are wrong.
No.
So we asked for the 166.
No, so wait, sorry. The original amount was what?
92.
92.
Yeah, so that should be in table 6. Then the additional position should be in 6A.
Essentially, yes, we're having to go back
That's
and
why-
ask again for. the
That's right,
72.
that's right. It couldn't look wrong
We're
because
still
you gotta
saying we
add,
need
you gotta add
166.
both.
Yeah, they're actually in table 4, but yeah, you're right.
It's your second budget.
Yeah, and this is not all their fault though, this one,
Yeah.
because the new governor
And-
asked for the additional budget.
And what realize we can do very simply to clear up what we've asked the new governor for is we'll just share with you what we sent to the new administration yesterday. And so that summary is going to be a lot clearer. Then you can see everything that we've asked for. But sorry for
But
that.
we're just assuming 6A is what you asked for though.
But your dollar amount then is in 6A. You say
Well,
you're 4
It'll
million
just be
short.
cleaner in this new format and you don't have to piece together.
Okay, so I think what she's asking is the total amount just 6A or 6 and 6A?
It's 6 and 6A and those items on table 4 that were not funded. So that's why it's in 3 different places and that's why we'll get you a single spreadsheet by today, because we already produced it. It's already with your staff distributed, and it'll provide a much clearer indication of what
Okay,
is
so
not
you have 3
included.
things. You have
before
6. You have 6A, and then all the things you originally asked for but didn't get in table 4.
Correct.
So that's why it doesn't add up. But you haven't prioritized all.
And in what we provided to BNF, which was provided, there is a priority list.
So the PowerPoint, does that show that summarizes all though, you're saying?
Yes.
So the total amount of positions you're asking for that are new,
Did you guys go through this with the board?
yeah, this is,
Did they understand? I'm so confused.
Everything that we've put forth to budget and finance.
Is approved by
has
them.
been board approved. It's just the pieces that we, and how we've been asked at different times to respond, and that's causing it to be complicated.
because normally it's just governor's budget. And even whatever you ask, the governor says, too bad, you better just say what is governor's budget. But that's not the direction you're getting this year. Okay. So table or page 21 of your PowerPoint. That's the complete number. No, is that it?
Are you in 6A?
Oh, sorry. Let me go to the other one.
Are you
Pages
still in 6A?
20 and 21.
Yeah,
Are you still in 6A?
I'm sorry,
Where are you? Table
page
what?
24 of your PowerPoint, right? That's not the complete, which page summarizes everything you're asking for?
Slide 20 and 21 titled BOE
that
Budget
is it.
Request Summary FY 24
24?
and 25, which is organized by EDN. That is the total of what the Board of Education has approved, which includes that's the sum total of what the board has approved and that we've requested.
So on members on ours, it's page 20. and page 21. That's the complete summary of all three documents. Except it doesn't show how many positions that they're asking for. It only shows dollar amount. Do you have that? So how many new positions?
So in total FTEs, perm and temp, 373.5 in year one,
Right.
373.5 in year one.
300,
That's 352.5 perm, 21 temps,
in fiscal year
in
24.
24, and in 25, it's 426.5 and 22 perm and temp. And of course, that includes these large amounts, like the
There's like 1,000 people you guys asking
Bishas.
for.
Sounds like it.
well, it's a cumulative number. So by the second year, we're asking for a total. It's not 426 more, it's combined total. So we're asking for 373 in the first year and an additional roughly 50s, 75. in
Okay, so
second
the
year.
total is the 426
Correct.
when it's all said and done. So you need additional 450 people. So if you just can go find 550 positions.
We can come and share more. There's as Deputy Armstrong mentioned, there's a large number of positions for applied behavior analysts. And then there's also a large number of positions for BSHAWs, which are bicultural school home aides. So it's not like it's not 400 different kinds of positions. There's a lot of it's made up of a couple of requests for
Okay,
positions.
I'm just trying to go from your summary though.
Yes.
So
I
I'm
understand.
articulating is dollars, but not positions.
So slide 23 actually shows those FTE counts by those bucketed categories and
Slide 23.
Slide 23 also shows the
Two positions.
The slide 23 is a good summary. The only thing that it has that $3 million discrepancy that we talked about earlier, that was with the GIA.
with no FTEs attached.
Okay, so we have to look at that slide for your position and the previous slide for your dollar amount.
We'll send a new.
You couldn't
spreadsheet.
just do it all in one.
You get it, you get the whole thing.
It's the 25.
Yeah,
FY
but this
25.
number is wrong because they're saying it's 3 million off. Right?
And it just, well, this number is the $3 million
Yeah.
issue.
The D-
So if the dispute should be 3 million more, so this should be 186.
Yeah, 186.8 and 213.5, correct. That would be everything general funds. Just for quick context, just 3 line items or 3 areas make up 309 of those FTE counts. That's the BSHAW positions, the ABA positions.
But as you guys are
And
adding all
distance
these
learning
things, are you
positions.
reviewing programs that no longer make sense? Then you should say, okay, but should be in its place. Because if not, all we keep doing is adding and adding and adding and adding without reviewing anything that to say these don't make sense anymore. So we should get rid of these older programs that don't make sense and supplant them with these new programs. Is there a process for that?
That's typically done through either the reorganization process or through a positions can be amended from one position type to another. So we work within our position ceilings and put our positions where they're needed most, which is a constant challenge.
But who evaluates? Because I hear from different principals and even different CASIs, different teachers, the need for certain resource teachers. Because now you have new programs for resources and then you have resource teachers. So now you have 2 things to some extent doing the same thing.
I think with the education, we're kind of unique from departments in the sense that we have some flexibility with positions. For example, weighted student formula. Every year, we're providing dollars to schools and they're telling us what they want to do with those dollars in terms of which types of positions. We have similar flexibility in our complex areas with the complex area, what we call the ICAA funds. So there is that. It's the categorical positions.
But I'm
that I
talking
think
even the
you're-
complex area
have-
superintendents, they get a lot of resource teachers, and then on top of this, now you're asking all of these new resources for new programs. And then you still have 92 positions that are super approved that the budget, that the legislature didn't approve. I mean, it just seems like it's just. No, doesn't seem to be any
Well, I
containment
think that's-
strategy.
The reason I was talking about WSF and ICA in particular is because it's not static. It's a constant annual process of identification of priorities and needs and position alignment to that.
But it's not position and revenue neutral. It
Well-
keeps going like this. So we don't see any that nothing's getting washed out when you're adding in. I mean, I get the cost, I get the whole, the things increasing costs and things like that, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about additional positions, additional programs.
In some cases, it's asking for FTEs where we currently have to use contract dollars, but I hear what your point is, and then we can
No, but are
tease
you-
out.
Are you fully
What is
using all the
true-
resource teachers to what they're? Are you fully maximizing all of them before you keep adding? I don't know if you are. I mean, you have to
a
prove
whole
it
lot
to
of-
us. Like how many resource teachers do you have per complex?
Complex areas have the CAS has the discretion to purchase what the CAS
How many
needs. It
average?
varies from complex area to complex area. Some choose to have more EO type positions, which are more costly. So they may have fewer positions than a CAS who may be more suited to have resource teachers. So that is within the discretion of the CAS. Right now, through ESSER funding, we did give complex areas 4 positions to support the department's foundational strategies, the healthy habits, healthy schools, action-oriented data decision making,
Okay,
responsive.
so can you give us an org chart of each CAS?
We would need to survey the CAS.
You don't know what the CASs have as far as organizational charts?
We know what they have, but if you want to, okay, we can provide it.
Just the point is that it's flexible. You're gonna have some discretion of what they say.
No, I get that, but we need to compare what you have now. What's being spent, what you're trying to address now, what you're asking for, and see if that's already being funded in some other way. Because that's a lot. Like 425 positions.
Sure, we'll provide that to you.
You also provide us a list of the school sites where you are in for security. You have 73 sites now, but you want to up it to 91 schools. And for a cost of 4 million, that's for all total 91. 4 million. This is table 6. Table 7 of 8.
When do you guys, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the schools the 73 schools, you're already providing security.
Mhm.
Coverage for the nighttime. But
Correct.
You're asking for additional to cover 91 schools. So could we have a list of the schools?
Yeah, yes, we will.
And the 4 million you're requesting is for all of the schools, not just for the additional.
Yeah, so part of that security need is we have roving officers that go to different schools that have shown a predisposition based on just the community situation or Kaimuki High School is one that we use often. Crane Park is right next to it. Homeless people gather there and they impose themselves on our campus. So we run security guards to those schools. But we'll get you that list. Yes.
This goes back to my request that you guys work with the new law enforcement agency, because it's not just you guys, other libraries, are asking for security too, so I think we really need to coordinate this.
Yes, so we have had that discussion with Deputy Oku. We've started that in another area,
Great.
so we're engaged. Thank you.
Sure. Security, the security. Sorry, I want to go back to break, sorry, guys. Give me, humanly. Just, security, going forward, I know I requested that we have security in all of the elementary schools, and I know the budget probably doesn't permit that, and, we're trying to get this thing going on. Same though Senator Kadani said that we should have our own law enforcement or our own security, because then we can have them 24 hours. What is the securities or whatever they call them, attendant status now and their pay increase?
So what we've done, and we have a new talent management director or assistant superintendent that we have started to upgrade these categories, because the challenge we have in that category is it's at the low rung of the pay scale. And in order for us to get better officers, we need to raise that to the different standard. And that has started already. I think there's 3 or 4 new classifications. So Deputy Okogura is working with our talent office.
So, give you, it's a long time ago, I don't know if you guys can research on, but when I was a security guard in Campbell, you had to take a test to get in, to be even qualified to be called to work. They did away with that. I just want to know why they did that, do you know? Well, maybe not now.
Oh, you know what came in? What's a guard card? That became the new standard. Guard card. They have to carry the guard card in order to.
Anybody with money can get a guard card. Okay, just joking. Okay.
Thank you.
So just
Thank you, Chair.
follow up.
Chair.
When you said you have to get better officers, like your officers is like,
More qualified. There'll be different levels of the officers. So there'll be an entry level and some certification, and we'll help them with that certification to get them to the level that they're more prepared for the situation and more aware.
Yeah, because back then we did CPR, we carried handcuffs, we had all kinds of stuff, even Billy Club, nada.
Well, and when I was at the community colleges, one of the concerns was that we're not creating a police state for students. That may be not the best environment to engage. So that was a concern, but no, we're stepping that stuff up.
Senator Richards.
And is that gonna go, I assume statewide, because
Absolutely.
Waikoloa Village, we had that situation last, I think it was November, end of October, right before I got elected, that we had a security problem. And they've been asking for a resource officer. I think that's what the correct terminology is, but basically security. So what are we going to do about that in the short term? I talked to our police department and they stepped it up, and that really helped out a lot. But police department's limited resources as well. So are we doing something to make this happen soon?
Yeah, fortunately, the neighbor islands has that category of and support from the local police department. We don't have that, or the police force here is somewhat constrained just in their rank and file, how many people they're short like everybody else. But the neighbor islands have been very fortunate. We had a gentleman from the Maui Police Department speak to the House Ed Committee, and so that is a very good program. We're trying to move it forward with working with the state and new agency in state services. So you'll see more of that evolve.
Okay, and timeline on that?
Well, we started the engagement with the state police office of the new division, and they came to being last year, I believe. So they're stepping up standing up their organization. But I just talked to Deputy Oku this morning about our meeting that we had day before yesterday or yesterday with the House side.
It sounds like we have another stuff to talk about when we get together.
Yes, sir.
Senator, one more thing to follow up on that. Thank you. This is for Superintendent. I appreciate the information you shared concerning the assessment, and congratulations on that. That's the report card for DOE. question on that is that, there's also a cost or a spending per student. And I assume this is a state average. And specifically when it comes to the statewide assessment, that's a state average. Do we have it broken down to districts? Reason being is I want to know what the rural districts, especially for my concerns is this equal across the board? Are we doing better? Are we doing worse than the rural? And then that would come back to the funding to help take care of the rural.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. Dr. Chen.
So just to clarify, Senator, believe your question is, what is the funding level like at our rural schools or compared to other schools or maybe our city
That's
schools?
part of the question, but the bigger question is, how is our performance on the assessment in the rural schools? And if it's not as good, then we need to look at the funding of those rural schools.
So we do have I can send you the information about
Please.
the performance of our neighbor island schools. We have them broken down by individual school as well as by complex area.
Okay, I would appreciate that because again, always concerned for the rural districts. They're far away and sometimes they get a little bit backburnered. So I'd appreciate that.
And the budget request does have that we've resubmitted to Budget and Finance does include some funding for small schools or remote and rural schools to provide some additional funding because they tend to be small, so their budgets this would supplement their budgets.
I have to believe there's an economy of scale. The larger the school gets, the economies of scale start playing in for everything. So yeah, I would appreciate all that information. Thank you, Senator.
Okay, I wanted to talk about your org chart. D1. Awesome. Let me go back up. I shall go C1. Let's start with C1. So I thought you guys reorganized. So now there's more than one deputy, but in this chart, there's only one deputy.
Yes, thank you for the question, Chair. We are in the process of with our three deputies, looking at evaluating where those needs are. We will be going through.
But you have people there already.
Yes.
So where do they fit into this org chart?
Currently, the three deputy superintendents fall.
There's only one on here.
And I believe what the process is that we submit our organizational chart that would be approved by the Board of Education annually at the end of the school
Yeah,
year.
but they already approved hiring the two.
Yes.
And it's awkward.
This org chart is as of June 30th, 2022. So we will go with what we have now. We'll then go back to the Board of Education annually to get the organizational chart approved.
So the two positions you added or that were approved aren't even in any org chart.
They will be put in the org chart. It will show up on next year's org chart.
Why wouldn't you change the org chart at the same time you hire the two?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. So there's Sean Bacon, Assistant Superintendent for the Office of Talent Management. So there's an annual process that we have to go through for the plan of organization that gets submitted to the governor's office on an annual basis. So the org chart that you're seeing here, based on the governor's requirement, we take a snapshot every year as of June 30th of each year. We then review that snapshot and then take that information to the Board of Education for any approval. From there, it does go to the unions for a consultation, and then from there, it does go to the governor's office and then gets posted on our website. So
what if they
at
don't
the point right now positions will be placed on the org chart for the next round that happens. As of right now, though, the two would fall underneath the office of the superintendent alongside of the current deputy. At this point right now, though, the department's in the process of analyzing how the new structure will be looking. We would then need to take a new structure to the Board of Education for their review and their approval. At that point, then we would then update the org chart and then it would be posted for the
That just seems to
next
be
year.
putting the cart before the horse though, because you hired people without even knowing where they're gonna fit in the org chart.
So I think at this point, right now, what is happening is the two positions for the deputy, we're looking at the overall organization of the department, and that's part of
But
what
there's-
Deputy
in the org
Chung.
chart, those two positions don't even exist.
As of June 30, 2022, when the snapshot was taken, the positions did not exist.
Yeah.
But then for this current school year, the positions have been created. They will then show up on next year's organizational chart that we take on an annual basis.
Okay, so who has to approve the org chart?
The org chart would have to go through the Board of Education for their review and their approval. Any structural changes to the org chart, also, we would need to go to each individual union and do a consultation with the union there at that point too.
Okay, so I know they approve the positions, but what if it's not approved? Or what if one of the unions don't agree? But you already hired the two.
At this point, that each of the deputy positions serve at the will of the superintendent at this point right now too. They are temporary positions right now.
Okay. Okay, you know what though? What I don't want then is you guys to use the excuse with us. Oh, it's not in our rules. We don't have protocol. We can't, there's no way we can fit it in. Because somehow you're able to, without it being in your org chart, you're able to do something. So if you're gonna use that as a way to respond to us, when we ask for something that's non-traditional or we need right away, you cannot use the same excuse. Oh, but it's not in our rules. It's not in the org chart. You should be consistent. So you either follow what you preach or you're resetting the rules.
Okay.
It's up to you. Senator DeGoy.
So those two positions that are acting aside you as the director, who takes the lead in this case, since you already have an existing deputy there? Or do these two positions, they're a hierarchy with the first position that you have on your additional two?
So the two additional deputy positions sit parallel to the current deputy superintendent. So the delegation of authority for the different offices, we're in the process of reevaluating that and adjusting the offices and those employees where there would be most it would support the efforts of the department the best.
No, but what he's saying is your existing deputy, since he already has or she has a plan in motion, if you put three parallel with each other, I think on confusion.
So
within there.
thank you. Each deputy currently has different responsibilities. One deputy superintendent deals primarily with the area of academics and working with the complex area superintendents and in that area. Another deputy works in the area of overall strategy for the department, liaisoning with the Board of Education, and the area is really tracking our metrics, our strategic plan, with the board on their current strategic plan, as well as the department's implementation plan moving forward. And the third deputy oversees the operations, the many areas of operations within the department.
So three, okay.
Yes, so that we're all working together to ensuring that our sections and areas within our department are not siloed, but we're actually working together as a system to ensure that the system is moving
Got
forward.
it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other question? Senator Inouye.
Those working remotely, It's all across the boards, I guess. Is it basically,
Which page is
okay, we're looking
it?
at,
For members, page 288.
yeah, it starts at 288. Yeah. There's like a total of past accounting over about 514 people. So does that include also Neighbor Island folks? And interesting, you're one of the few departments that you put an end date. So that's good. That means that you folks are assessing the situation. To me, I think that's, the remote work will end March 10th, 2023. And that's come up with all of the agencies when we were with DRG as well.
Page 2.
So it goes from secretaries to, I think, a lot teachers, specialists, and interesting that there were quite a few that were done remotely or doing it remotely is because there are lack of workspace. That was kind of interesting.
Thank you very much for the question, Senator. Assistant Superintendent Bacon from Office of Talent Management can speak overall to the question that you're raising. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. So for our the list that was provided, we did go out and we did survey all the complex area superintendents and all the state office assistant superintendents. It appears that a majority of this complex area superintendents have had all of their staff come back to the office and are not working remotely. The majority of the positions that you're seeing here that are working remotely are state office level positions here on Oahu.
Oh, okay. And what about those with a lack of office space? That's interesting.
So a few of them for lack of office space. A couple examples that I can provide at this point right now is we did have to set up our distance learning program quite rapidly. And at this point right now, there wasn't enough space at our office on the 22nd Avenue. So I believe the assistant superintendent, Terry Ushijima, is having a majority of those distance learning teachers that are teleworking because they don't have a physical class that is sitting in front of them. I know that they do have a room there that they can come in and work on a rotation type of schedule on that also. I know personally for me in the Office of Talent Management too, we do have our Leadership Institute. They are sharing exactly right now. I think there's approximately 15 teachers that are using, or 15 staff members that are using one classroom at IAEA Elementary. We're in the process of actually looking at a few additional classroom spaces at Mokulele Elementary. We're working on getting those transition to that location so that we can remove the telework need from there. But they're working on a rotational basis right now.
So interesting because there's a lot of vacancies and new hires that you're requesting. So hopefully that
Where would you put them?
Where would you put them?
451 people.
I think that's something that we're going to have to work through our Office of Facilities to look at a plan.
But you got to figure that out before you ask for the position. If not, that means all 450 is going to work remote.
Senator, some of the positions that we're requesting for example, the BSHA positions, the bilingual home assistants, they would be actually at the school level. Those are positions that schools specifically ask for, but BSHAs they support our bilingual students, our EL students, and they provide connection in that student's native language with that student and
that's okay.
and
That's
their
just
families.
a couple out of the whole
Yeah.
400
Okay.
we're talking about.
I believe it's 50 in the first year and 100 in the second year. Also, yeah.
Matter of fact, I think with the deadlines, you're ending the program, some starting already end of this month. So as I mentioned earlier, you're one of the few that has an end date. So hopefully that you'll be reassessing the situation. Okay, thank
We
you,
will.
Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Questions? Okay, I had a question about the federal award findings. Not sure who that is. This is the audit. It said that they noted that the department did not complete the reporting required by section 2, full disclosure of entities receive federal funding.
Thank you, Chair. Do you know, specifically what audit, that came from?
It is page 50. Wait, you have it? 19. Wait, they're getting it.
Page 19 in the audit.
Oh, 18.
Page 18.
No, it's the finding 21-002. Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act Report Control Deficiency. The DOE schedule finding.
254.
Oh, it's our page 254.
254.
In the condition, it says condition. You know what document they have to?
It's their audit, it's their financial compliance audit.
Yeah, I think you're looking at the annual financial audit. We're going through one right now. You must be looking at the last completed one.
Yeah, finding
Um,
number 2021.
I could take the specific question, but in general, I don't have that information off the top of my head. I would look at, and we always have a response and a management response, and I think it'd be best if we share that with you, so you have a complete sense of how we're responding and what we're doing in response to that.
Okay,
And typically those are included somewhere in that report as well. But we can also provide updates or.
Okay. And then going back to the telework, how do you ensure productivity and performance measures? What kind of matrix?
For our teachers, for our staff that are teleworking, our assistant superintendents assess at least quarterly, how our employees are doing on telework.
What does that mean?
Yeah,
How are they working?
I can have one of them share.
you can just state your name.
Annie Kalama, Assistant Superintendent for the Office of Student Support Services. So we do have several of our educational specialists who still telework 2 days a week. We do have them coming back, in some cases all on the same day, so that we can meet regularly. We do have a consistent team meetings, section meetings, and branch meetings. We also have implementation plans and action plans that monitor the work that they're doing. And as Superintendent said, we assess quarterly, but it's also our option as the employer to bring them back anytime. So it's more often if
So
needed.
can you give us an example of one employee of what they're supposed to get done in an average week and how you monitor that with performance productivity standards?
Sure. I mean, it's different for each employee. They may be working on a project. They may be writing reports in response to a report for a federal grant. They spend a lot of time in meetings, maybe meetings with community members, meetings with other offices. Sometimes they are actually in the field, in which case obviously.
So how is it all documented though?
We actually, at this point, we don't have them document their workday and everything they're doing.
So there's no consistent documentation throughout the whole department for telework as far as productivity?
Not in for us, not in terms of what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. They do fill out a telework agreement, which doesn't go into the specific work that they're doing, hour by hour each day.
The majority of the teleworkers were 2 days, which is, to me, I think, not too bad compared to the 5s that we've received, but there's quite a few of the those that are taking the 5 days are elementary teachers and secondary teachers, but it all has to do with distance learning. So according to your 5-day absence, yeah, or work details.
But there should be some documentation though, huh, of productivity.
And again, it does give limited physical workspace, so. We have issues, yeah, with accommodations, I think.
Senator Kim.
Well, this the question through me, if we have limited accommodations, these people were all working before, right? They weren't on.
Telework,
remote
yeah.
Telework, and there were spaces before for them, but they're not anymore. Right?
Yeah.
So one category of one group of employees who are teleworking are the ones that Sean Bacon mentioned earlier, virtual learning. Teachers for virtual learning those were new positions during the pandemic, and they are teleworking.
Right,
So they weren't physically in the office previously since they were new.
Senator, while they're getting that number, also, we did have some district and state resource personnel that were stationed at schools prior to the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, schools needed those classroom spaces back to be able to distance the students. And so those complex and state office personnel were displaced from the schools. And we needed to find them spaces at the current complex and state offices. And so the teleworking was used at that point for some of the employees. So that might account for some of the reasons
They
why.
can go back to where they were before.
Schools, it's important, once schools get spaces back, a lot of times it's difficult to reclaim the space. And rightfully so, that our schools need the spaces to enable to support students.
You know, but you guys got lots of cash that you have to spend for the MOE. Why don't you buy the building?
Well, why don't you go in West Oahu College, get all kinds of space, because there's nobody on campus. I know, we have all these buildings.
Take you there.
Yeah, we do have a request, Senator, Chair, for a purchase of a school in Manoa. A CIP request, and then we would use MOE money to do the renovations.
But you guys have cash from last year too.
Some, yeah.
You're buying the school,
We
but
would,
that's for office work.
there's an opportunity in Manoa to acquire St. Francis
Oh, okay.
for about 33 million. It's 11 acres.
Chair, while we're talking about purchasing, last year, I think our both committees, Water, Land, and Education, we had the transferring of, all the TMKs, all the lands that we identified. So where are we, or what are we doing with that list and the program? Are we going to build already, or assessing? You have to go check all those land divisions. That was throughout the state, yeah. When we transferred lands from counties and this whoever.
Okay, but you can answer, follow up in writing for that question. But I want to go back to the remote work. So you have a lot in there, reason for continued remote work. Employee is able to complete all work tasks from home. So that's a sufficient reason for telework then. So any employee, let's just say in the state, if they said, hey, I can do all of this at home, that's enough. I mean, that's quite a bit you have in there.
Yeah, because I could do this meeting from home, Mr. Chair.
You guys gotta have a more stringent policy than that.
Yeah, I think the department is going to go through this evaluation. It will end and everybody will come back. But I will tell you this, Senator, like all state facilities, I believe there's an inefficiency of use of space. And like I did in my former position, we're just going to need to go down to the different areas, especially the offices, and start consolidation. There's areas that are like, are misused or having junk. Some of the spaces are too large, and actually some of the departments want to consolidate and get more efficient. But that'll take resources to buy new furniture to do the reconfigurations.
But
yeah, and we have.
But some of these people were in offices before they left.
Yes.
I mean, I hear what you said about a couple of schools and things like that, but lots of educational specialists, test development specialists.
And I wanted to go back on the accountability issue and the fact that you don't have any kinds of reports or what was the word that she used, that hour by hour. We're not necessarily saying you gotta tell us hour by hour what you're doing, but hopefully daily you have a work plan. Because if someone decides, you know what, I can do this report, I'm gonna tell them it's gonna take me 5 days, but literally I can do this in my sleep. Probably gonna take me 5 hours max, and I'll just spread it over the whole week and then I'm done.
Thank you, Senator. We are in the process of reevaluating what we're doing with telework. So we'll give that information to you as soon as we do that. And we'll work on a method to document accountability. So thank you very much for that. We'll work on that. Thank you.
Okay, you have one here that says, teleworking allows staff to maintain a focused work environment and limit distractions. You would think you would try to do that at the office too, though.
Yes. We'll reevaluate what we're doing, Senator. Yeah, we'll definitely get reevaluate it and get that process to you.
Other questions?
Different question.
You're going.
The last time we were over at DOE, yeah, we talked about the kindergarten assessments. Can somebody tell me what the status of that is?
Yes, thank you for the question, Senator. Deputy Armstrong, kindergarten entry assessment.
Yes, we will be ready to implement that assessment starting school year 23-24. We ran into some issues with the kindergarten assessment for our Kaipuni schools. And so we're going to relook at that. And after discussions, it's recognized that we'll need an additional assessment for our entering kindergartners going to our Kaipuni schools.
And what's the cost of that contract?
We have that. I can get that to you.
Is it still $1 million or more?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I think we had a long discussion regarding that, because I think that when we passed that assessment, it was not intended to go out and get a third party so-called assessment kindergarten, we wanted the teachers to assess, because they're good at assessing, to spend $1 million on an assessment that will be outdated in 6 months, because at kindergarten age, these kids advance and learn quickly and move on. We spent $1 million for one assessment at kindergarten, and that's it. And I think we raised these concerns with you. So for that, the fact that you continue to pursue this really concerns me.
We do have to ensure that our assessments are valid and reliable, and that those assessments, as they're being developed, go through stages. We also are going to need assistance in creating that assessment.
Well, that's the thing. You're saying the teachers are not equipped to assess adequately.
When we're talking about a uniform assessment, we would need to ensure that it's valid and reliable.
But again, all kids are different. So if you're going to do a cookie cutter, to me, I don't know if that's a reliable assessment. I mean, we want the kids to be assessed, but we want them to be assessed in a manner in which they can work with the teachers, not to go out and buy $1 million program that's only going to be good for 1 year, if even 1 year. Then what are you going to do at first grade? What are you going to do at second grade, third grade, fourth grade? That kindergarten assessment is not going to be valid in first and second grade, right?
Correct.
Right. So you think that's money well spent?
That's what it's going to cost us to implement the requirements of our meeting the requirements of having a uniform statewide kindergarten assessment.
Did the bill say that it had to be to that degree?
Yes.
Because I know we talked about it and I said, you guys need to come back in and ask the legislature to clarify as to what was their intent. And if we knew that it's going to cost $1 million for an assessment that's only going to be good for a short period of time, I don't know that we would all agree that we would like to spend that kind of money. That perhaps we want some kind of assessment locally done that could be, as good, maybe not on that degree on the whole country. I'm not sure, but to me, that's something that I think DOE, we need to look at. And sometimes, you know, we get the legislature, we get enthusiastic about something and we'll pass something, but you folks are the ones that have to deliver it. You folks have the ones that have to balance it. You need to come back and say, excuse me, can we clarify this? Do you know that this, what we have in mind is gonna cost $1 million. You guys might have in mind something that might have been in the tune of $100,000. And is that what you want? I just can't imagine us spending that kind of money for an assessment that's going to be good for 6 months.
But do you have an alternative for us that so that we can look at the language of the bill and maybe amend it of the current statute?
We'll think of some ideas and submit them in addition to the revisions that have been submitted. To address the cost factor, if cost is the issue, yes.
Because you've already contracted this out?
For the Kaipuni assessment?
No, the overall assessment.
No, that's the one you're asking for in the budget, I thought.
Correct. So we have contracted for our 23-24.
So you've already spent $1 million for that contract? Or you're committed to that $1 million?
No, Tammy, I thought you said earlier that when you guys were going line by line.
So in the governor, so there's two different kindergarten, given the parameters of the law, there were two different assessments that the board has approved, one for English medium and one to develop one for Kaipuni for our Hawaiian immersion. So for the English medium one, the request in the budget is for $207,000 a year. That's for teacher training and assessment. That was in the governor's budget. Then there is an additional request that's in the additional items we submitted to Budget and Finance to develop a Hawaiian one for our students in our Hawaiian immersion programs. That cost for development is $713,000 over 3 years. So that's to fully prepare the test, and that is in the budget request.
So what about, have monies been spent?
That monies have not been spent for that contract.
There's another contract in addition to the 207 for the test, right? Or whatever it is, the assessment for the rest of in English.
So the English
How much was that?
The English is 200, let's see, it's 200. We requested 207,000 and the governor in the first year and 179,000 in the second. And the governor's budget includes both of that. That's for English. So that's the only expense.
That's the only expense for the training of the teachers, not to buy
And
or to
it's
contract the test.
It's for both. The contract of the test is including the training of the teachers. I'm going to hand it back to Deputy Armstrong since.
Scott, what is it?
We'll get back to you with the actual cost of the test, the training, and then the multi-year rollout.
Okay, give me a ballpark. What do you think that is? Outside of the $713,000 to develop the test for Hawaiians, what is the total cost to do an assessment in English for the rest? The development, the tests, the training, what is that cost? Approximate. That's not 217, right?
No. We're gonna have to get back to you with the cost.
But is that what around $1 million that you guys told us about last time?
I'm not personally familiar with the million, but I can tell you that we're not, for the English test, we're not developing a test, we're just purchasing one.
Right, but then that cost to purchase.
And so the budget line item that we've requested for that is 207 in the first year, 179
To
in the
purchase the
second.
teacher. That's a one-time
That's a recurring cost of around that amount.
cost is that much. And the preparation of the tests for develop the Hawaiian test is 713, but that's not including the training and so forth.
So this would be developing a new test. So that's the cost over beyond the biennium. Heidi's.
But that's just the creating the test.
So for the test in English, the cost is $232,312 for year one. That's the test and the training. And then the 5-year total would be $889,115. And this is for, the test has already been developed, so we're just purchasing the
And we've
assessment.
only going to purchase the first year. We haven't purchased it yet.
We're gonna purchase the first year for
So we
$232,000.
have time to reassess that.
No, so that if you get the money,
Right. This is it.
right, it's in your budget request. So if you don't get the money, you cannot purchase it.
Correct.
Okay.
So do we expect to get something from you folks regarding this? As to the evaluation and how,
Yeah, it's in their request.
no, but that's for the money, but to reassess
Oh.
what was asked for of them and what we
Oh,
thought
oh,
we
the
were doing.
amendment of the bill and.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and whether or not this is what, knowing this kind of cost and knowing that this assessment is only gonna be good for a very short period of time, how valuable is that? I mean, can we use that money to work with these children in a better way? That's gonna be more.
Yeah, so just
Also-
evaluating the statute to see what needs to be tweaked. So that those two things separately, I guess.
And those can be discussions future
Yeah.
forward.
Yes, if we have a bill, then you can have a much thorough discussion in the subject matter.
And our teachers in the classroom are the best ones. And yes, and they need something that can be a little bit more unified, but I think that, after a couple of weeks with a child, the teachers are pretty good at assessing them. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a quick one. So is there any reason why that we cannot do them like what Senator Kim is saying? Is it because of union or
No.
teachers or
It's
what?
a
What is
bill
the
we
reason?
passed, but it's the way they're interpreting the bill. Basically,
I think we should
Exactly.
just redo the
Intent-
bill then.
No, that's what we're asking for, tweaking the language. Yeah.
and I asked this a while ago and nothing's come in. If we just proceeded on like, I don't know why. You didn't think we're gonna bring it
Any-
up again?
Any other questions? If not, we have one more WAM info briefing today. We have Department of Ag. So because we've been going the whole day, we're asking that we start Department of Ag at 4:30.
We can work remote.
Mhm.
Start at 4. Yeah, then I can go home and catch my flight.
Oh, you have,
No,
Including
thank you,
savings?
thank you very much. Thank you.
you wanna stay?
You did a good job.
Okay, thank you. Adjourn.